For decades, the world's major navies have focused on aircraft carriers and helicopter carriers as the ultimate symbol of power at sea. But the future of naval warfare is beginning to shift away from manned aircraft alone and towards unmanned systems. Drones are cheaper, more flexible, and increasingly capable of surveillance, strike, and support missions that once required conventional aircraft. Because of that, a new kind of warship is emerging, the drone carrier, designed to launch and operate unmanned aircraft from the sea. Today they are still rare, but in the coming decades, drone carriers are likely to become far more common and may redefine naval aviation itself. But today there are few drone carriers that exist. Let's have a look at them. The TCG Anadolu. The TCG Anadolu is the ship that most clearly turned the phrase drone carrier from a concept into an operational reality because Turkey actively reworked the ship's role after losing access to the F-35B program. It was originally designed around a more conventional aviation model with helicopters and short takeoff aircraft, but Turkey's defense industry adapted quickly and transformed Anadolu into the centerpiece of a new drone-focused naval concept. This ship is closely associated with the Bayraktar TB3, a carrier-capable naval drone that has already demonstrated takeoff, landing, and weapons trials from the ship, and it is also expected to support the Bayraktar Kızılelma in the future if integration succeeds. This is what makes Anadolu historically important. It is not merely a ship that can carry drones, but one of the first warships anywhere to be deliberately pushed towards operating fixed-wing armed UAVs as a primary aviation capability rather than as a minor supplement. The vessels entered service in 2023. In operational use, Anadolu can support amphibious troops, helicopters, command functions, disaster reliefs, and naval diplomacy. The Type 076 Sichuan-class. This is China's newest and most ambitious attempt to merge an amphibious assault ship with a true naval drone carrier. It is designed to support amphibious warfare, sea control, and long-range unmanned air operations in a single hull. Unlike a normal landing helicopter deck, the Type 076 is especially important because it reportedly includes an electromagnetic catapult system, EMALS, which means it is being built not just for helicopters but also for fixed-wing drones and heavier unmanned aircraft. That makes it a major step beyond the earlier Type 075 assault ships, which are mainly helicopter platforms. The ship is expected to operate a mix of reconnaissance drones, strike UAVs, and possibly stealth naval UCAVs. The ship also retains the amphibious function of carrying troop, landing craft, and helicopters, so it is not a pure drone carrier in the narrow sense, but a hybrid assault drone warfare platform. The first ship, Sichuan, began sea trials in late 2025, which makes that the practical entry point for the class, even though full operational service may follow later after testing and aviation integration. The IRIS Shahid Bagheri. This was Iran's most striking attempt to create a naval drone carrier by converting a commercial vessel into a floating UAV launch platform for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. Its purpose was to give Iran a low-cost, asymmetric way to extend drone operations far from its coastline. The ship reportedly carried a mix of Iranian drones such as motherships, amphibious variants, Homa VTOL drones, and other reconnaissance or strike UAVs, along with helicopters and supporting equipment for long-endurance drone operations. It was formally commissioned in 2025, making it Iran's first real operational attempt at a fixed-wing capable drone carrier. However, its operational life appears to have been extremely short, as open reporting indicates that it was struck during the 2026 Iran war. Even so, Shahid Bagheri matters because it was demonstrated that states without traditional carrier building capacity can still create improvised drone carriers by converting commercial hulls into expeditionary UAV ships. NRP D Joao II. This is not a traditional assault ship or aircraft carrier, but a purpose-built multi-mission drone mothership. It is intended for the Portuguese Navy, and unlike the bigger Asian or Turkish examples, its role is less about high-end fleet combat and more about surveillance, ocean patrols, scientific support, disaster response, special missions, and the operation of unmanned systems across air, surface, and underwater domains. That makes it arguably one of the cleanest examples of a modern navy designing a ship around unmanned systems from the start rather than merely adding drones onto a conventional deck. That vessel is expected to operate UAVs, USVs, and UUVs, in other words, not just flying drones but also unmanned surface craft and underwater drones, making it a true multi-domain drone carrier rather than simply a mini aircraft ship. It is smaller and less dramatic than the big Asian drone carriers, but conceptually it may be one of the most forward-looking because it treats unmanned systems as the ship's core purpose rather than a secondary add-on. The Zhu Hai Yun. This is one of the most unusual and important drone carriers in the world because it was designed from the start as an autonomous unmanned mothership rather than as a conventional warship adapted for drones. It originates from China and was developed for the Southern Marine Science and Engineering Guangdong Laboratory, with construction support from Chinese shipbuilding and autonomous systems firms. The ship is able to carry and coordinate dozens of unmanned vehicles, including aerial drones, unmanned surface vessels, underwater drones, gliders, and smart buoys, making it more of a full-spectrum autonomous system carrier than a normal drone ship. What makes Zhu Hai Yun especially significant is that it can sail remotely or autonomously without a permanent onboard crew, which is why it is often described as the world's first intelligent unmanned drone mothership. It was delivered and officially put into use in 2023 after earlier launch and testing phases in 2022, and that makes it one of the earliest operational examples of a large autonomous drone carrier at sea. The Ghost Commander II. This is a futuristic South Korean carrier concept unveiled by Hanwha Ocean at MADEX 2025, and it represents one of the clearest examples of a warship designed around unmanned naval aviation from the outset. Rather than being a traditional aircraft carrier, it is intended as a hybrid command ship and drone carrier capable of operating crewed aircraft alongside a wide range of unmanned systems. What makes Ghost Commander II especially important is that it is built around the idea that future fleets will rely not only on fighters and helicopters, but also on UAVs, USVs, and UUVs working together as a single combat network. The concept has been associated with unmanned aircraft such as the Grey Eagle STOL and LOAS stealth UAV, alongside helicopters and potentially short takeoff aircraft, though its final air wing remains conceptual rather than fixed. Unlike Anadolu or Type 0076, Ghost Commander II has not entered service yet, so it should be treated as a future concept rather than an operational ship with a confirmed service year. UXV Combatant. This is one of the earliest and most influential drone carrier warship concepts ever proposed, even though it was never built and remains a design study rather than an operational ship. It originated in the United Kingdom, where it was developed by BVT Surface Fleet. The company then later became part of BAE Systems Maritime, and it was unveiled as a futuristic concept in 2007. The idea behind UXV Combatant was to create a warship built around the heavy use of unmanned air vehicles and unmanned combat aircraft, while still retaining the firepower and flexibility of a surface combatant. Unlike a normal carrier with one long flight deck, the design featured a very distinctive V-shaped twin-flight deck arrangement intended to support the launch and recovery of UAVs, UCAVs, helicopters, and even VTOL aircraft from a relatively compact hull. The concept was therefore not a pure drone ship in the modern sense, but rather a hybrid drone carrier, strike ship, and command vessel designed for the future battle space. The MUGEM, Milli Gemisi. This is Turkey's long-term answer to the limits of TCG Anadolu and represents a move from a modified amphibious drone carrier concept towards a much larger dedicated aviation ship. It originates from Turkey and is intended for the Turkish Navy as a domestically designed carrier that can project air power far beyond the country's coastline. While still a future project rather than an in-service warship, MUGEM is especially important because it is expected to support a strong unmanned combat aviation component, reflecting Turkey's rapid rise as a producer of carrier-capable drones. The most likely aircraft associated with it are the Bayraktar TB3, and the Bayraktar Kızılelma, a much more ambitious jet-powered unmanned combat aircraft intended to give Turkey a genuine sea-based strike capability without relying solely on manned fighters. If built as planned, MUGEM could become one of the first medium-sized carriers designed around the logic that drones are not a side capability but a central part of the air wing.